somebody was just asking me if I ever get nervous doing these seminars. I mean, after doing them for a couple of years, and yes, I do, very nervous. Especially when it's a small, intimate group like this, I get more nervous than when it's a huge crowd of people. In fact, in the book of lists, it says that the number one fear is public speaking. Did you know that? The number two fear is death by fire. You can imagine how I feel right now. I had this one friend of mine that does seminars around the country, and she told me, she said, you know, you really should get nervous when you do seminars because only 15% in the audience is really listening to what you have to say anyway. She said 10% don't want to be there. They were dragged there by somebody else. And the remaining 75% are having sexual fantasies during your seminar. So I figure it really doesn't matter what I say. Most of us are going to have fun tonight. Before I get going, let me find out, do we have some extra people here? Like, is everybody here work in the salon, or do we have some extra people too? Okay.
We have some new people too.
All right, all right. Well, it's a real pleasure for me to be here with all of you. My name is Winn Claybaugh. I've been in the business now for almost 11 years. Not as a hairdresser, though. I've never been a hairdresser, strictly as a business owner. I originally started in the salon business and then later expanded into the school business. In fact, in January will be my school's 10th year anniversary, and 1992 has been the best year we've ever had. In terms of enrollment, it's been our number one year. You know, last year 25% of salons in this country went out of business, and it's projected that by the year 1995, meaning within the next 3 years, 50% of the salons that are now open will be out of business. I shared those statistics to a group of people last week in this big audience, and the lady on the back row screamed out, "Oh my God, that's terrible!" And a lady on the front row said, "Oh no, that's good." That's good. That last year enrollment in beauty schools was down 35%, except in my schools, of course, but down 35%, meaning there are less and less people coming into this industry. Let me ask you something. Are there less and less clients? No. Just as many clients, if not more clients, but there are less and less people available to service these clients. This is great news, gang. This is very good news to those of us in this industry that are dedicated, that are excited, that are focused, that are committed, because it means that now our potential is unbelievable. Program, which is also on my audio tape series. It's kind of my phase 1 program. And I would have some salon owners call me up after hiring me to do phase 1. They'd call me back to say, "Hey, Winn, we want to hire you to come back in and do phase 2. You know, do you have a phase 2? And I say, "Well, of course I've got a phase 2. And they say, "Great, we want to have you come back in, get the staff all excited." And I say, "So, that means then that you have implemented that guaranteed 5-minute massage that we talked about in phase 1? No, we didn't do that. But does that mean then that you at least reworked your merchandising? You got it from behind the reception area? No, we didn't do that either. But does that mean then that you at least organized a system to keep your salons clean from now on? No, we didn't do that either. But do you have anything new?" When a salon asks me if I have anything new prior to implementing the basics, I know that this is not a salon that is into mastering. This is a salon that is looking for the quick fix. Come in, get the staff all excited. That excitement maybe lasts, for a couple of months if you're lucky. All of a sudden things go right back down to where they were before. Nothing changes. And so salons end up going to seminar after seminar trying to find more new ideas on how they can become successful when they haven't even mastered the basics. How many of you believe in the importance of having a clean salon? Okay, pretty much all of you. If I had a whole group of salons together here, I know it's not the same for your salon, but if I had a whole group of salons here together and I asked the whole group, how many of you can honestly tell me that your salon is always as clean as it needs to be? What percentage of salons would be able to say yes to that?
We could.
You could, I know that, but what percentage of salons do you think could say yes?
40%.
How much?
40%.
Yeah, or less. Tell me something. Is there a better idea out there than having a clean salon? No, and yet salon owners will go to seminar after seminar trying to find ways to become successful when they haven't even mastered the basics. Well, tonight we're not going to go over business. Tonight what we are going to talk about are some areas of development. Rob and I spent a bit of time on the phone and corresponding to come up with a program that he wanted to share with all of you here tonight. And I guess he consulted with all of you as well to find out exactly what you would like me to share with you. The program that we're going to talk about tonight is a personal development seminar. In fact, Barbara's going to pass out a workbook which kind of covers what we're going to cover here tonight. So nowadays, when salons call me and say, can we come in and do phase 2? I say, is your salon clean? They say, no. Well, call me when your salon's clean. Why do we want to move on to phase 2 if salons haven't even mastered the basics, such as keeping a clean salon? Tonight, we're going to talk about leadership in the salon. And when I talk about leadership in the salon, I'm not just talking to salon owners. I'm not just talking to salon managers. I'm talking to every single person in this room. Because, especially in this industry, the nature of this industry is that we can all control our careers, right? Like, who gives you the raise in the salon? The boss? Who gives you the raise? Yourself. That's the great thing about this industry. You don't have anybody holding you back. So when we talk about leadership, we're talking about peak performers. So whatever word you want to plug in there, whether it's the traits of a leader or the traits of a peak performer, it all applies. It's all the same. Let's go ahead and look at the first page. There was 45. Are we short?
Well, there are a couple people here who are part of the...
So we can kind of share.
So maybe we can share some.
Okay. Oh yeah, Barbara, do you want to run downstairs and have them print up our next book?
Does everybody have one now?
How many are we missing?
We're fine. We're fine.
Actually, towards the end, we don't want to share because
Right.
we're going to go through that exercise. So let's see how many we need to get printed up.
Does everybody have one
Well,
now?
here's one here.
Okay. Okay, so print up an extra, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'll have to take one out.
Thanks, Barbara.
Hey. No.
Okay. In talking about leadership, in a lot of seminars that we do, we always stress the importance of teamwork. However, in every organization, it is very important that people step forward and assume the responsibility for the success of that business. That people step forward and assume the responsibility for the profitability of that business, for creating that nourishing environment that we're going to talk about. And long gone are those prima donna salon owners and stylists who think that ego and attitude can replace good manners and a positive self-image. We need leaders, and again, I'm talking to every person in here, we need leaders within this industry or within any industry who assume the responsibility for the development of themselves. I soon learned as a salon and school owner that my number one priority was not so much in the development of my business, but in the development of myself first. You see, leadership is not determined by possessing a business card that says you're the boss. You could be appointed to a position of control, and that position could give you authority, but that does not necessarily mean that you are a leader. My definition of true leadership, spelled out right here, is someone who gets the job done through the efforts of other people who gladly and confidently follow. Now, there are a couple of parts to this sentence. I know salon owners who get the job done through the efforts of their people, but their people don't gladly and confidently follow them. In fact, oftentimes I see business owners and leaders trying to lead their people by threatening their people, by intimidating their people, and to me, that's not a true leader. Hey, now, be honest, how many of you here would work for yourself? I asked that question once to a group of salon owners, and this one owner raised his hand and said, I'd quit first. I'd quit before I ever worked for myself. The name of my company is Von Curtis Academies and Salons. And for the first couple of years that we were in business, our salons and schools enjoyed a steady increase in service and retail revenues until all of a sudden we hit this one plateau where for a number of years, no matter what I tried to move beyond that plateau, nothing seemed to work. I mean, I tried everything. In terms of trying to get the staff to sell more product or to increase their service dollar, nothing seemed to work. I tried education and motivation and competitions and threats. I mean, I tried everything and nothing seemed to work. A lot of stagnation in my company at that time. At that same time, in my personal life, there was also a lot of stagnation. And to tell you the truth, that's kind of putting it mildly. I was oftentimes depressed. I felt very hopeless, not only about my present situation, but about my future. And I started subscribing to a lot of different philosophies, started reading a lot of different books, going to some seminars, including what is kind of considered a clinical approach to psychotherapy through a man by the name of John Bradshaw. I don't know if any of you are familiar with John Bradshaw. He wrote a book called The Family. And that was the first book of his that I was exposed to it. And in this book, John Bradshaw says that he believes that 95% of society was raised with some type of dysfunction. And to think that 5% were raised without any dysfunction, I think is being pretty generous nowadays, right? But even if you had perfect parents, the dysfunction came from society, from watching television, or from where you went to school. And in this book, The Family, he gives different scenarios. For example, if your father was an alcoholic, mom and all the children are codependent to dad's alcoholism. Mom and all the kids are kind of sucked into that scenario. There was a study done in the early 1900s in an orphanage where they divided the infants into two groups. To one group, they fed them and clothed them, and that was it. The other group, they fed them, clothed them, held them, loved them, cuddled them, talked to them, and they tried to reverse the process, and in many cases it was too late that some of these children, some of these infants in the first group actually turned their face to the wall and died of a disease called marasma. Marasma basically means a lack of love, a lack of attention, a lack of security, and that lack of love can actually mean death to a child. So in a family environment where maybe dad's an alcoholic and therefore emotionally unavailable to the family, a child can't face that. See, a child can't face, my father's an alcoholic, he's not available. He can't, 5-year-old child can't say, hey, Dad, get your act together. I have some real developmental needs here, A child can't face that Dad's not available, because that could mean death to the child. That lack of love or security could mean death to the child. So the child will assume a different role. For example, in this book, John Bradshaw says that one child becomes the surrogate spouse to mom. Why? Because dad is emotionally unavailable to mom, so another child assumes that role. Or another child becomes what he calls the scapegoat, getting in trouble with the law or with drugs or at school or whatever. Why? To take the heat off of what the real issue is. The real problem is dad's alcoholism, but we can't talk about that. We can't face that because that could split up the family, which would destroy the child's security. So another child has to create a diversion over here. Another child becomes the people pleaser, the straight A student. Why? To bring pride to the family. And what he says in this book is that we take these roles with us into adult life. So as adults, even though we are no longer members of that original family unit, as adults we are still the people pleasers. As adults we are still more concerned with other people's emotions and problems than we are with our own. As adults we still lie when it would be just as easy to tell the truth. And in this book, every chapter kind of covers a different dysfunction, whether it's alcoholism or drug addiction or eating disorders or abuse. And by the time I got to the 9th chapter, I was kind of getting depressed because I was starting to relate to every chapter. When I actually sat down and looked at my life, though, I realized that my father was not an alcoholic and there was not any kind of abuse. However, my father was a religion fanatic and a workaholic. And addiction's addiction. And I started even going to 12-step programs because I was really interested in gathering as much information as I possibly could. And people would often ask me if I was a recovering alcoholic. because I had such a good understanding of a 12-step program, they would ask me if I was an alcoholic. And my answer to them was, no, I'm not an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic. It was not drugs or alcohol that brought me to my knees. It was guilt. It was guilt that can exist in some organized religions. Some of that dogma that can exist with some organized religions. In fact, I would kind of joke with people and say, I'm not a recovering alcoholic, I'm a recovering Mormon. And a lot of people can kind of relate to that, If we were to go around the room here tonight, I know that each one of us would have our stories to tell. Each one of us could have a story to tell, and though the particular details of our individual stories are not so important, what is important is, what are you going to do about it? What is important is, where are you going to go from here? Hopefully we all come to a point in our lives where we get motivated. And that motivation either comes out of inspiration or out of desperation. Myself and most of the people, most of the friends that I have, we become motivated out of desperation, right? Like, you let things get so bad, they can't get any worse than this, there's got to be a better way. The truth of the matter is, those experiences that we've all been through, whether you want to categorize them as good or bad or indifferent, those experiences possess a lot of wisdom that can help us become wonderful leaders, wonderful peak performers. And again, I came to a point in my life where I said enough already. There's got to be a better way. I have several mentors in my life, people that I look up to, people that I try to learn from. And in the last many years, in trying to learn from these mentors, I have gathered what I want to share with you are the 10 traits of peak performers, the 10 traits of leaders within this industry. Is it warm in here?
Yes.
Can we just ask them to, like,
Cool it.
Cool it.
I think it's right there.
Okay. I'm sure they have a house phone, though.
They're
Okay. The 10 traits of a peak performer. I want to share these with you. The first trait that I want to share with you, number 1, to know your purpose. Now, purpose is different than goal. See, you could have a goal to be rich, but that's not your purpose. Your purpose for having a lot of money is not to have a lot of money. Your purpose for having a lot of money is not to have a lot of pieces of paper with pictures of dead presidents on it. That's not your purpose. You might say that your purpose for having a lot of money would be to have independence or to have freedom, time to do the things that you enjoy, the things that make you happy. In fact, let's take a look at what it might look like. Again, you might have a goal to be rich, and the purpose for that, we already decided, might be to have freedom, to have the time to do the things that make you happy. Oftentimes people will say that they would like to be rich so that they can be charitable. Well, let's just take a look at just one of these. Let's just take a look at being happy. What else could you do in your life which would make you happy? Other than being rich, what else could you focus on which would make you happy?
Your family.
Family. Okay? Relationships could make you happy. What else?
Your friends, your job.
Your health.
Health. Health could make you happy. And we could go on and on here making a list of those other things that we could do which would make us happy. Do you know anybody that's rich and they're still not happy?
Yes.
Yeah. And the reason why that is because they never decided in advance that their purpose for being rich was to be happy. See, oftentimes what we tend to do is we put our lives on hold until we reach our goals. We think that sometimes we are human doings, not human beings. Human doings meaning I'm reaching my goal. Like you have a goal to sell a lot of retail. I'm reaching this goal. I'm selling a lot of retail. I don't know why I'm selling retail, but I'm reaching the goal. We are human beings, not human doings. And oftentimes we put our lives on hold like we say, well, when I'm making that much money, then I'll be happy. When I'm driving that kind of a car, then I'll be happy. When I'm in the perfect relationship, then I'll be happy. But right now, I'm not in the perfect relationship. In fact, the person that I'm dating right now, that's just a temporary relationship. So I'm not going to be happy or nice to that person. But when the perfect person walks into my life, wait till you see how charming I can be. You know, if you're not charming now in all of your relationships, if the perfect person did ever walk into your life, why would they want to date you? Right? If you've been this miserable bitch waiting for them to arrive, you know, they're not going to recognize that you're the person for them. See, we ultimately get then that our happiness does not necessarily come from being rich. And once we know that, we can decide to be happy before the money gets here. We can decide to be happy before the relationship gets here. And being happy is a much healthier state of mind, which will attract, among other things, prosperity. Okay? Knowing what your purpose is. The second trait I want to share with you is to be goal-oriented. I don't pretend to be an expert on goal setting. However, there are 4 things that I'd like to share with you that I have kind of learned from the experts about goal setting. Once you know that your purpose for being rich is to be happy, then you can effectively go on to set goals on reaching this financial goal. The first thing to remember about proper goal setting is to be very clear and concise. What does rich look like? Salon owners will say to their staff, I have a goal to keep the salon clean. Well, what does clean look like? You know, the stylist is leaving the salon, and this owner is saying, hey, wait, don't leave yet. Remember, we're supposed to keep the salon clean. And they're thinking, well, it is clean. And to them, it's clean. What does clean look like? Be very clear and concise on what your goals are. The second thing to remember is to write them down. Write down your goals. If you don't write down your goals, it's just a wish, it's just a dream. How do you make it stronger? You write it down. If you think it, ink it. I heard that once. I think it's silly, but it sticks with people. The third thing to remember is to measure everything. Measure everything. Always know what it is that you are getting. If you had a really serious goal to lose weight, how often would you step on the scale? Once a year? When do most of us look at our goals? At the end of the year, right? Wow, I really blew it this year. I hope I do better next year. If you had a real serious goal to lose weight, how often would you step on the scale?
Every day.
Every single day. Yes, you said that. Every single day. Every single day. Always measure what it is that you're getting. Again, if I had a whole room full of stylists from salons all over the place, and I asked them, how many of you here want to make more money, what percentage would raise their hand? All of them. If I asked them, how many of you could tell me what your retail percentage was for last week, what percentage would be able to raise their hand? 10%. 10%. See, are they measuring? Are they measuring their performance where they're at? And if they're not, it's going to be very difficult to reach that goal of making more money. Okay, measure everything. And the fourth thing to remember, be flexible enough to change directions. When you set your goals, be flexible enough to change. You know, when a pilot takes off to fly from Los Angeles to Hawaii, you know, that's about a 5-hour plane ride. Do you know that 95% of that 5-hour plane ride, the pilot is off course? Did you know that? 95% of the time, the pilot is off course. Now, does the pilot take off, get up over the ocean, realize he's off course, and say, oh my gosh, we're going to crash into the ocean? No. He's got all these instrument panels. He's constantly measuring where he's at, and then flexible enough to make those minor adjustments. So he sees over here, uh-oh, we're off course, I got to make a minor adjustment here. We're off course over here, make another minor adjustment, a minor adjustment, and then he lands on a dime in Hawaii every single time. We take off with our goals sometimes. We never measure where we're at, and we crash and burn every single time. Always measure where you're at and be flexible enough to change direction. The third trait of a leader is to focus on the positive. To focus on the positive. Now, this is a real tough one for a lot of people these days. You know, oftentimes meeting with salon owners, oh my gosh, when this recession, you know, what it's doing to me and my salon. You know, I have to tell you, several months back, I was scheduled to do, I live in Laguna Beach, California, and I was scheduled to do about 3 days worth of seminars in Santa Barbara, which is about a 3-hour drive from my home. I packed up my car, I was on my way, I had all my clothes, all my supplies. I stopped off in LA to pick up some supplies. I was in the office for maybe 45 minutes. When I came back out, I all of a sudden realized my car had been broken into. They stole my briefcase, which had about $300 cash in it, had all of my lecture notes that I had been writing for the last 4 years was in that briefcase. I had placed them in there because I was going to be working on them over the weekend. They stole my brand new Bergdorf Goodman suit that I had just picked up from the tailor that day. I was with my partner, and he was more upset that they didn't steal his suit. They left his suit, and he's like, well, what's wrong with my suit? Why didn't they steal my suit, When I came out and realized what had happened, I was furious. I was livid. And I was saying things to him like, why did this happen to me? Bad things like this should not happen to me. I do motivation seminars, right? Which meant I had to drive all the way back to Laguna Beach, pack up my car, get more clothes, and then drive all the way to Santa Barbara, which was going to put me into Santa Barbara at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was scheduled the next morning to do 3 sessions of Shot in the Arm. For those of you familiar with Shot in the Arm, anybody here? It's a 3-hour program, meaning I was scheduled to do 9 hours worth of motivational seminars the next day. The last thing that I cared to do the next day was 9 hours worth of motivational seminars. We get back to the house, and he's like, because I'm complaining the whole way, and he's like, just turn on the television, get your mind off of this, and I'll go get dinner. So he leaves, and I turn on the TV, and it was the show Empty Nest. The storyline in Empty Nest this night was that their home was broken into. So I sat and watched a 30-minute comedy routine about being ripped off. It didn't help. I was still upset. He came back, we ate dinner, we pack up the car, we get in the car, we're driving, and he's driving, I'm still complaining, He said, well, just pop in a motivational tape. I'm really big on motivational tape. Just pop in a motivational tape, you got to get your mind off this. He said, fine. So I popped in this motivational tape. Tape player was busted. They were trying to steal the tape player, and in the process, they broke it as well. They stole my briefcase, $300 cash, all my lecture notes, my brand new suit, and now the tape player was busted. I had many negative things to focus on and felt very justified in focusing on all of them. Because I like that drama in my life every once in a while. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm still complaining. He's like, well, then turn on the light and read, do something. I said, fine. So I grabbed this book that it just came in the mail. I hadn't read any part of this book. I grabbed this book, I turned on the light, and he said, wait a minute. Before you open up this book, just turn the book to the middle of the book, and whatever is on that page is what you need. Stupid idea. But to humor him, I said, okay, fine. So I grabbed this book, I turned the book to the middle of the book, and on the top of that page, it said, what are you focusing on? What are you focusing on? Driving down the road of life, all of us look through our windshields. Looking through that windshield, we can determine where we are, where we want to go by looking through that windshield. But what else do we look at? What else do we look at?
Future.
We look in the rearview mirror. Because looking in our rearview mirror, we can see where we've been, what's happened back there, and also by looking in our rearview mirror, we can have an indication as to what could happen in the future, right? Like if you're driving down the road and you look in your rearview mirror and you notice some flashing red lights, that could give you a very good indication as to what could happen in the very near future. Now, driving down the road of life, what is in our rearview mirror? Bad experiences, bad relationships are in our rearview mirror. Okay, I want a name of a bad relationship. Come on, somebody give me a name. Brad? Notice how fast she threw that name out? Brad is in our rearview mirror. Now, oftentimes, we are tempted to drive down the road of life focusing only on our rearview mirror. Brad, that idiot, what he did to me in the past. And if you're driving down the road, looking only in your rearview mirror, what could happen? You're going to crash, or you're going to end up where you don't want to be. Now, we're not saying to pretend that Brad never happened. What we're saying is, put it into perspective. put it into perspective, because now you're driving down the road of life towards that new relationship, but every once in a while you want to glance in your rearview mirror and say, oh, I learned that in the past, from Brad. I'm not going to repeat that again on your way to that new relationship. You know those times that your friends call you on the phone to dump on you? They call you at night to tell you about why their lives are so miserable. They want to dump on you. You know what you say to that person next time they call you? Stick it in your rear view mirror. Meaning, put it into perspective. It's not our only focus in life. Because if you're focusing on how bad things were in the past, you're setting up the present time to be just as bad as the past was. And you program the future, you program tomorrow with today's thoughts and beliefs. So if today's thoughts and beliefs are about recession, are about how bad things are, or how bad things were in the past, what's tomorrow going to be about? Yeah, it's going to be exactly the same thing. Okay? Because if you're worrying about the past, you know that worrying is negative goal setting. Worry is negative goal setting. The brain is an incredible machine, and the brain will focus on what we tell it to focus on. We program our brain. We say, brain, these things over here are very important to me, so I want you to focus on these things over here. But these things over here are not very important, so just edit that information. You see, if your brain tried to focus on everything that was happening all at once, it would explode, right? There's no way your brain could take in everything that was happening. In fact, I want to prove this to you. I want all of you to close your eyes. Close your eyes. Now keep your eyes closed. When I count to 3, you're going to open up your eyes, and you're going to have a few short seconds to look around this room, notice and memorize everything that is the color brown. Now remember, you're only going to have a few short seconds to do this, so you've got to look around the room quickly, notice and memorize everything that is the color brown. 1, 2, 3. Quick, look around. Everywhere. What's brown? Memorize it. What's brown? What's brown? What's brown? Okay, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Now keep your eyes closed. And with your eyes closed, I want you to yell up to me everything in this room that is the color purple.
Celia's shirt. Celia had some in her shirt.
Tell me everything that is the color pink.
Celia had some in her shirt.
Go on.
David had some in his shirt.
Tell me everything that is the color brown.
Bodie and Julie's hair. Jerry's mom. David's hair.
Okay, open your eyes. At least you didn't say somebody's teeth. Did you notice what happened there? During those few short seconds that you had your eyes open, you programmed your brain to edit out all other colors and focus only on the color brown. Well, there are a lot of people who are going through their lives every single day focusing only on the brown of life, which I could call it something else, but you all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Do you know people like this? Focusing only on the miserable things? If we were to go around the room here tonight, I know that each one of us could share with the rest of the group 10 reasons why our lives could be incredibly miserable. Isn't that true? We each could come up with 10 reasons why our lives could be miserable, but hopefully what we have learned to do as responsible adults is we don't focus on that. We don't focus on that because we know that it does not empower us. Choose to focus on the positive. I told you that, and those of you that know me, motivational tapes are really a big thing for me. And I brought one of my favorite motivational tapes, and I just want to play you like a small, 2-minute excerpt from one of these motivational tapes.
He said, we'll give you a little bit of background. He said, when I was 2 years old, my daddy died, and my mama was left there at home on a farm with 12 kids to raise. And I'll never forget a situation. I was the youngest of those 12 children. I'll never forget a situation that happened whenever I was 5 years old. Every morning about 5 o'clock, my mama would come in there to the room where I was asleep. She'd come up there, that little bunk. She'd put her hand on my shoulder, and she'd say, son, get up. we gonna have a good time today. I'd jump up out of that little bunk, and I'd go running in there in the kitchen, and I'd sit down on a little three-legged milk stool by the wood cook stove where Mama was fixing breakfast. She'd throw a quilt around my shoulders, pour me about a half cup of coffee, about half milk. I'd sit there and sip that coffee while Mama was cooking breakfast, and other children would be out doing the chores, milking the cows, feeding the hogs, doing things that need to be done. They'd all come back in, we'd have breakfast together, and then they'd take on off to school.
How many kids in the family?
12.
How old is he when this happens to him?
5.
His mother wakes him up and says what?
Have a good time.
He goes into the kitchen and sits down on what? He drinks what does he drink?
Coffee all free.
Okay, we're gonna have a test.
But because I was too young to go to school, I'd stay there and help Mama do the work that needed to be done on the farm. Now, this particular time I'm thinking about, we were picking turnip greens. I don't know if any of y'all ever picked turnip greens before or not, but that's long in the winter time of the year when it's real cold. And we'd been down there and we'd picked several baskets of those turnip greens. We brought them back up there to the house. And out there behind the house, we had this big old long wooden bench. Had 3 big old wash tubs filled with water where we'd wash those turnip greens. Well, I went out there that morning to wash those turnip greens, and there was a layer of ice about 1 inch thick frozen over the top of each one of those tubs. I got me an old axe handle, and I went along there and broke the ice on top of each tub. I'd give me a big old double handful of those turnip greens, and I'd dunk them down there in that first tub, and I'd wash them around, you know, and then dunk them over in that second tub, and then rinse them off in that third tub. That old Mississippi saw is hard to get off them turnip greens. I'd pile them over on the porch, Mama would tie them into bundles, and we'd put them into cardboard boxes, take them down to the general store, and swap them for sugar and flour and stuff we had raised our home on the farm. Well, this particular morning, I was washing those turnip greens, and I looked down there at my hands, and it just seemed like a 5-year-old's hands are just so small, and my fingers were just so cold that they just turned numb. And I turned to my mother and I said, Mama, I'm not having a good time today. And I just hurt all over. Just from the tip of my toes to the top of my head. I just black and blue and cold and hurt. And that night, whenever I went to bed, I was still miserable. Next morning, 5 o'clock, just like she always did, Mama come in there, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Son, get up. We're going to have a good time today. I just rolled over and I pulled the quilt over and I said, No, I ain't going to get up. It's going to be a bad day. Well, she just turned around, went on back in the kitchen, started fixing breakfast. The other children got up, did the chores, came in, had breakfast, went on to school. Mother went on out to work. About 10 o'clock, I heard her in there in the kitchen. I got up, came walking in. She looked at me. She said, What are you doing in here? I said, Well, I got up to have some breakfast and help you do the work around here. She said, Oh, no. No, son. She said, Don't you remember? You made the decision this morning that it was going to be a bad day. And she said, Son, it's going to be a bad day all day long. She took me right back in there and put me right back in that bucket. Now, you'd think any mama would let her little boy up to have lunch. But bless that dear mother's disciplined heart of mine, I stayed right there in that bunk right through lunch. I didn't even get to get up whenever the other kids came home from school. I didn't even get to get up for supper. It was the longest, most miserable, bad day I'd ever spent in my life. Next morning, 5 o'clock, just like she always did, Mama come in there, she put her hand on my shoulder, and she says, Son, get up. We're going to have a good time today.
What do you think you did?
I bounced up out of bed and I went running in there. I sat down on that little 3-legged milk stool. Mama threw that quilt around my shoulders and I started sipping that coffee, and right then and there I learned a lesson I've never ever forgotten. And that's this, that you and you alone make a decision every single day as to whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day. It's not that individual that may unthinkingly pull out in front of you on the way to work and decides whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day. It's not that irate, upset spouse, or son or daughter, or client that decides whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day unless you let. The greatest power that you have is the power to choose every single day as to whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day.
Good. Focus on the positive. The 4th trait is to love people. Let's pretend that all of us in this room have a goal to become financially rich. Okay? Let's just pretend. So what we've got to do is come up with a composite of a rich person. Do me a favor, throw out some adjectives to describe rich people. What do they like?
Nice cars.
Adjectives.
Generous.
Cheap.
Gracious.
What else?
Smart.
Classy.
Huh?
Worldly is
That's a negative?
that's a positive worldly, isn't it?
Educated.
Well, I think it's lucky.
Old.
Old.
Republican.
Okay, let's stop there.
Aggressive.
Now, let's pretend that you're at home and did she say husband material? Let's pretend that you're at home and you're looking out your front room window and you notice that your neighbors pull up in a brand new Mercedes. Okay? How many of you would A, get so excited that you run out there and congratulate them on their new car, or B, look out your window and think to yourself, those
Why not?
bastards.
I'd say
Figure they stole it. I said they hit the lottery. They live in your
How many would run out and congratulate them? Here's the lesson.
use it this weekend.
Here's the lesson. It is impossible to bless something in your own life and curse it in the life of somebody else. It is impossible to hope for prosperity or for happiness or to effectively love yourself or other people if there is someone else out there that you don't hope the same thing for. Why? Because a thought doesn't escape its source. Not only that, but as long as you are focusing on the negative attributes in rich people, you will never be rich. See, as long as we are judging people, we're not loving them. Our job in life is not to fix people or to change people, because by definition, if you're trying to fix or change people, you're judging them and you're not loving them. This is a great business to be in because we get that opportunity every single day. If you have 10 clients sitting in your chair, you have 10 homework assignments. And what you choose to offer that client sitting in your chair is what you're going to get back in your own life. See, we're generous. We love other people out of self-interest. Because why is it that we are able to recognize negative attributes in other people? Why is that? Because we've seen them in ourselves first. You spot it, you got it. So we don't want to spot the negativity in other people. We only want to spot the greatness, the brilliance in other people. Again, it's not our job to change or fix people. I was doing this seminar for a bunch of salon owners down in Miami like a year ago. And there was this one salon owner that came up to me afterwards and he said, Winn, I believe in everything that you're teaching. I think it's all wonderful, but, and these were his exact words, how do you soar with eagles when you're working with a bunch of turkeys? And I said, excuse me, sir, for being very blunt and honest with you, but do you know what your problem is? In believing that your employees are turkeys. One of the greatest things that you could do for your people and for your business and for yourself is to believe that your people are eagles. Even if they're acting like a bunch of turkeys, you still treat them as if they're eagles. Basically, what we're talking about here in learning to love people is just to give people a break. Just to give people a break. When I tried to implement this, in my own life, do you know who I had a hard time giving a break to? Waitresses, flight attendants, right? People in the service-oriented business. Why? Because sometimes you cop this attitude like they're there to serve you, and how dare that waitress be in a bad mood, right? On a day that she's there, supposed to be serving you. So, how many of you here have never been a jerk? Okay. Now, on those days that you were a jerk, I don't think that you woke up that day and said, I think I'll be a jerk today. On those days that you were a jerk, had you known how to do it better, you would have done it differently, right? Had you known how to get what you wanted without being a jerk, you would have done it differently. So you just have to assume that everybody is doing the best that they know how to do. Just as we're doing the best that we know how to do, just assume that everybody else is doing the best that they know how to do. Okay? And the fifth trait is daily conditioning. Daily conditioning. Somebody did this for me many years ago, and I want to share this with you. I want you to calculate on a scratch piece of paper how many hours a week you spend reading the newspaper. If it's 0, write down 0. And I'm not so much talking about, scanning the newspaper as I am talking about devouring, memorizing, digesting the newspaper. Okay? So calculate how many hours a week you might spend doing that.
Devouring or scanning? I know what you're talking about.
Devouring. Memorizing, really getting into that. How many hours a week?
Naples Daily News or?
Talking about Metro News.
Tracy, the Inquirer.
Okay?
Yeah, I don't either.
Now, how many hours a week do you spend watching the news on television? And if you think that the 10 o'clock news, we're talking about negative programming here, and if you think that the 10 o'clock news is not negative programming, do you know that there's a line in broadcasting, if it bleeds, it leads? Meaning, if there's murder to report, that's what leads the broadcast. Why? Because then they know they've got you hooked. Driving down the street, if there's an accident on the street, what does everybody do? Yeah, everybody wants to stop to see that. Because people are entertained by that. Okay, so if you watch the 10 o'clock news every night, and that's a 30-minute broadcast, write down 3.5 hours a week. Again, if it's 0, write down 0. Now, how many hours a week do you spend watching television shows that deal with drugs, violence, gossip? America's Most Wanted, Cops, Geraldo, Hard Copy, 911, soap operas, day and nighttime soap operas.
Just give it the...
Now, if you go to see movies that fall into this category, please figure that in this weekly. So if you go once a month, figure out what does that divide up into in a week. So, okay?
This is any TV though, right?
No.
Just
No, not comedy. Not comedy. Okay, now it gets even tougher.
I can't watch it anymore. I'm not
Dynasty.
downtown.
Now,
TV.
how many hours a week? How many hours a week do you spend engaging in or even listening to gossip conversations?
How many hours do you work a day? None.
Gossip conversations, because again, if you are negatively gossiping about another person, you are pointing your finger at that other person and saying they are guilty. So who else is guilty? You are. You are. Now add up these hours. What's the total? Add these hours up. What's the total?
46 or something.
Okay. Now get this. I've heard it said that for every hour you spend in negative programming, it's going to take you 100 hours of positive programming to undo the ill effects of that 1 hour. Meaning, if you went out and saw the movie Silence of the Lambs, and that's a 2-hour movie, it's going to take you 200 hours of reading motivational books to undo the ill effects of that 1 2-hour movie. A lady in my class yesterday said, I saw the movie 4 times.
Did you see it, Lynn?
No. 800 hours of reading motivational.
You never saw it?
So times this number by 100.
Great movies.
Swear to God, I never saw the
In the
movie.
newspaper, you think it's negative?
So you mentioned that. So times this number by 100, meaning add 2 zeros to this number.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you read the newspaper is bad?
Okay, put it this way. If you are reading the newspaper, meaning if you want to be informed of what's going on, the best place to get it is from the newspaper, not from the news, because you can't control what they're going to throw at you watching the 10 o'clock news. Otherwise, you can scan the titles of the newspaper article and read the information that you need to know. Meaning, do you need to know how many murders there were in the city last night? Do you need to know that? No. Okay? So, and the only reason why you would want to read the news is so that you could do something about it. Right? You would want to read about the homeless so that you can do something about it. You would want to read about violence so that you could do something about it. But how many people in America watch the 10 o'clock news every night and then they go to bed thinking, oh my gosh, this is an awful world we live in. This is a very cruel, cold, hard world, and they become less loving, less trustful, or trusting of other people. And do we need more of that? No. Okay?
Yeah, but sometimes you don't want to be too naive either.
I'm not talking about being naive.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
talking
have to
about
be
being
aware.
informed so that you could do something about it.
But you have to be
Right.
aware also.
Do you need to know how many bodies they dug up from Jeffrey Dahmer? Do you need to know that?
I don't want to know that.
How many
But if I
people in
go that
America?
city, I want to know where it's
How many
at.
people in America want to know that? Thrive after that. What was the number one movie last year in terms of box office? You know what the number one movie was? Wasn't Silence of the Lambs. Terminator.
It was, or was it Home Alone?
That was your.
No, that was last year.
Terminator.
Was it?
Okay. Now let me ask you, do you have this many hours in a week to spend reading motivational books? If we're talking about daily conditioning here, I want to share a few ideas on how we can turn that negative program. Now wait a minute, if you're as happy as you want to be, if you have all the peace of mind that you want in your life and you don't want any more peace of mind than you already have, if you have all the self-confidence, all the self-esteem that you want and you don't want any more self-esteem than you already have, this doesn't apply to you. You can still gossip, you can still go to those kind of movies. But if you're wanting to make some changes in your life, all I am doing right now is sharing some ideas that have worked for me. The first idea, as far as daily conditioning, is to cut out the negative programming. We don't go to those kind of movies, we don't hang around those kind of negative people. And the second idea is to replace that with positive programming. Motivational tapes, again, have really worked well for me. In 1988, I bought a new car. And when I bought that car, I committed that I would never listen to music in that car. Now, you might think that that's kind of extreme. I love music. I'm a musician myself, but I dedicated all of my driving time listening only to motivational tapes. And I probably have the largest collection of black market motivational tapes than anybody I know. Because I have this group of friends that whenever I find a tape that I like, I copy it off and send it to all of them, and they do the same thing for me. And I probably have about 400 or 500 tapes in my collection. And when I sold that car, it had 105,000 miles on it, and I spent that driving time listening to motivational tapes. I figured that's enough motivational tapes to have a college degree by now, right? So, replacing negative programming with positive programming, and again, motivational tapes have really worked well. I have a difficult time reading books, because I could spend 2 or 3 months with a really simple book. I buy all these books. I'm like a junkie when it comes to buying these wonderful books, and I put them on a shelf in my bedroom where I look at them every day, but I haven't read them. For some reason, just glancing at the titles, works for me, like I'm going to get it through osmosis or something, I don't know, but it works well for me. And the third thing, how many of you here use affirmations? Affirmations? Okay, those that didn't raise their hand are lying. All of us use affirmations. Unfortunately, a lot of the affirmations that we use are negative affirmations. How many of you have ever said to yourself, "Oh, I'm so bad with names"? You ever said that to yourself?
Did you ever just say that?
Yeah. It's a negative affirmation. So when we meet somebody, even if we wanted to remember their name, we can't, because we've been saying to ourselves, programming ourselves for years, "Oh, I'm so bad with names." It's a negative affirmation. Okay? Whatever works for you, for every person in here, it would be different what that daily conditioning would be. How many of you feel better about your day driving around in a clean car? How many of you will drive a dirty car for weeks? I'm the same way. My day goes so much better when I'm driving in a clean car, and yet I'll drive a dirty car for weeks. Well, you know what? Nobody's going to steal my car, wash it for me, and bring it back. That's not going to happen unless I make that happen. Whatever you need to commit yourself to, helping your day go better. Some people say that having fresh flowers in the house all the time makes their day go better. Whatever it is that makes your day go better, commit yourself to that, and that's the daily conditioning that we all need to focus more on. Okay? The sixth trait, hard work. Hard work. People spend a lot of time watching what leaders do. I tell salon owners all the time that people spend a lot of time, employees spend a lot of time watching what the boss does. And I tell salon owners, unless that salon owner is willing to bend over and pick up that gum wrapper in the waiting room in the salon, there's no way that they can expect an employee to do that as well. But more important than hard work is the next one, number 7, smart work. Under smart work, please write down the following statement. People support what they help to create. People support what they help to create. Now, let's put this into context. Let's say that cleanliness was a problem in your salon. Now, as leaders in the industry, all of us could get together here tonight and we could create a fabulous cleaning system, right? To maintain cleanliness in the salon, we could, divide up all the duties and then rotate those duties, and we could come up with a great cleaning system, and then tomorrow you could take that cleaning system to other people who maybe aren't here, and you could put it in front of them and say, okay, here it is, this is what you have to do. What's their instant reaction to something like that? Yeah, forget it. Forget it. You know what? We'd all do the same thing. It's human nature to rebel against somebody telling us what we have to do. Well, if we're talking about working smarter, and according to this statement, people support what they help to create, if cleanliness was a problem in your salon, who creates the cleaning system? Everybody. Everyone is involved in creating that system. Now, also in terms of working smarter, not harder, working smarter, you all know this. If you have 10 haircutting clients come into the salon, how many opportunities do you have to sell color?
10.
To sell perms?
10.
To sell product?
10.
To pass out your business cards? 10. Okay, so let's say a first-time client comes in your salon. She's never been in before. She's going to pay for a haircut and style. How much is she going to spend? $35. Now, if this client leaves your salon without buying product from you, according to studies, there's only less than a 40% chance that the client will return. If the client leaves your salon purchasing at least 2 products from you, there's a 90% chance that she'll be back. Do you make money on a client who comes in only one time? No. You make money by having a client come back again and again and over a period of years. If you want this client loyal to you, if you want her coming back, it's very important that the client buys product. So how much more is she going to spend?
Depends on if we're having a special. Probably about
What's the average?
$15.
Another $15? Okay, stylist, do you receive a commission for your retail sales?
yes.
Yeah? Are you going to get rich off that retail commission? No. It could pay a car payment or something, but you're not going to get rich off it. Well, that retail commission check is not your only motivation for selling product. Your motivation for selling retail is it helps you retain your customer. So now we've got this client spending $50 with us. Okay? Now, haircutting clients, meaning clients who come into your salon and all they ever pay for is a haircut. Do you know that haircutting clients are loyal an average of 1 year only? Perming clients are loyal an average of 2 years. Color clients are loyal 5 to 8 years. Meaning if you want to build loyalty with your customers, introduce them to chemical services in the salon. Again, we're talking about working smarter here. So we want this client to receive a hair color or a perm from us. How much more is she going to spend?
$100
What's the average?
per perm.
Say $50. That's between highlights and color.
75.
That's just for one thing.
Okay, look at the middle
Well,
there.
that's color and perm. 75.
Okay, $110. Now, we want this client to pre-book her next appointment, because if she does not pre-book, the client comes in only 7 times a year. If she does pre-book, she'll come in 10 times a year. So now we want this client pre-booking. She's coming in 10 times a year. Now we've got this client spending this much. And because she's a color client, she's loyal for a minimum of how long? 5 to 8 years. Now this client represents $5,500 to us. If this one first-time haircutting client could represent $5,500 to you and your salon, would it be worth it to give her a wonderful massage with every visit?
Be worth
Say
a
yes.
couple free products.
Would it be worth it to call her within 4 or 5 days of her visit to ask her how her experience was?
Yes.
Would it be worth it to spend the necessary time during the consultation See, because some stylists will only do that 3-second consultation with the client, right? You like what we did last time? Great, let's go. After the shampoo bowl, it's the same thing over and over again. Again, if we're talking about working smarter, unless you are spending the necessary quality time with your customer, there's no way that you can turn this customer into a product client, into a color client, or into a pre-book client. This is what we mean by working smarter, not harder. Does that make sense? Okay. Do we need to take a little break? Okay, let's take a quick 10-minute break.
Wait, no.
Oh, do you have pizza coming at 20? It's at 7:20? Wait.
I can't.
Okay.
You got to go?
We have to time this when the pizza arrives, okay? So, I'm going to keep you until pizza here. Okay.
Get some more coffee, anyone? Yeah. Signature up.
Bring the water too.
We got the anchovies, we got everything on.
Okay.
Lots and lots of salt.
Winn, was shot in the arm the one we did in Fort Myers? Is that shot in the arm?
Right. Who's going to get shot in the arm?
Jackie.
There was some books.
Right.
That was what we did in Fort Myers.
You guys didn't tell anybody about it, right? Though?
Never.
No.
Okay, good. Sworn to
Time
secrecy.
to do it again.
We want to do it again. Here. Did you do that one?
Okay. You tell-
Don't even ask.
Okay, our next one.
Well,
Example. Set a good example. Who better to teach people in this industry about the excitement of this industry than somebody who really is excited? Who better to teach the staff and to teach other people about teamwork than somebody who really is a team player? See, the reason why I was at the seminar once, and there was this one man that was, I went to hear speak, and he was a phenomenal man, and he was introduced to the pulpit. When he was introduced as a genius, and when he came to the pulpit, he said, you know what? Everybody's a genius. It's just that some people are less damaged than others. The reason why we want to share ideas with other people, the reason why I do seminars, is not so that you can stand in front of a group of people and say, see how much better I am than you. The reason why we share our ideas and our progress with other people is so that we can represent to other people that they can become all the wonderful things that we ourselves aspire to become. Any great master, any great teacher, any great artist, it's not that they have more potential or more brilliance than you and I. It's just that they have accessed their brilliance. And through their example, teach all of us that we can become those same wonderful things that they have access, those wonderful traits. The next one, though, to be a good student. You know, for the last couple of years, on Tuesday nights, I've been attending a seminar in Los Angeles. And though it's a variety of subjects that they talk about at this seminar, the underlying message is always pretty much the same. And that is how to become more loving, how to become more forgiving. You know, it's one of those California type seminars. But I thought it was really valid information. At this seminar, she said, you know, you should treat your friends more like lovers and treat your lovers more like friends. And I thought that was really valid information. So I was trying to be more loving and forgiving in my personal life, also in my business life with the people that I worked with, to be more loving and forgiving with them. Well, this one Tuesday night, I remember leaving the seminar, and again, the subject matter was pretty much the same, how to become more loving, how to become more forgiving. But she really inspired me this one night. And I remember leaving there thinking to myself, you know, I'm going to dedicate myself to this even more. I've just got to become more loving and forgiving. And I was walking down the sidewalk towards my car, all the time still thinking about how I'm going to become more loving, become more forgiving. And then I got in my car to drive away, and all the time I'm still, you know, thinking about how I'm going to really commit myself to becoming more loving and forgiving. And then I pulled onto the freeway in rush hour traffic, and those ideas went right out the window. All of a sudden, the principles of being loving and forgiving had no validity on the freeway. I was at war on the freeway. Now, let me ask you something. When people flip you off on the freeway, what kind of a response are they trying to get from you? Yeah, they're trying to upset you. Well, I wasn't the type of person that was flipping people off, but I was the type of person that was getting very upset because other people were flipping me off. Have you ever noticed that Whenever you have a goal of something that you want to accomplish in your life, anything and everything that could possibly keep you from reaching your goal enters your life. Like, if you have a goal to become loving and forgiving, anybody and everybody that could possibly piss you off is on their way. Or if you have a goal to lose weight, all of a sudden you start having hunger pangs for fatty foods you never dreamed of before. Or if you have a goal to put your finances in order, your car breaks down, your washing machine breaks down. And it's almost like life is putting its arm around you and saying, you know, Winn, you're doing a really good job. You're working really hard, you're real dedicated, being really loving, really forgiving. Can you take that? Like, life throws this curveball at you from left field. I remember these friends of mine used to tell me that they had a history of attracting abusive people. And so they always found themselves in abusive relationships because they had a history of attracting abusive people. And as they would tell me this, I remember I used to think to myself, you know, your problem is not that you attract abusive people. Your problem is that you give them your phone number. My problem on the freeway was not that people were flipping me off. That was not my problem. My problem was that I was getting upset over it. I was placing my peace of mind into the hands of total strangers on the freeway. My serenity, my happiness was totally busted because of the behavior of total strangers. But you see, I didn't think it was important to be loving and forgiving on the freeway. I mean, you heard about California freeways. You know, people shoot each other. You know, they're out to get everybody. You know, it'd be easy to be loving and forgiving if you were living in the Himalayas or something, you know, but try being a spiritual master in rush hour traffic. It's a little tougher. But I didn't see how this was having an effect in my life until this one day I walked into this bank. And there's about 5 or 6 teller windows open. And you know how they normally have it roped off with a sign saying, wait for the next available teller? Well, they didn't have that at this bank for some reason. But when I walked in, I noticed that there was this line forming. So I went and I stood in this line, and it was a long line. I think I waited like 5 or 10 minutes. Well, I finally get to the front of the line, meaning the next available teller was mine. Well, this man walked into the bank, and he didn't see the line, or he didn't care about the line. I don't know what it was. But he went and he stood behind one of these teller windows, meaning when that person left, he was going to take my turn. Now, like I said, I've been going to these seminars for a couple of years about how to be loving and forgiving. I wanted to kill this man. I wanted to strangle him simply because he was going to waste part of my day. I mean, not only did I think it, but I felt it. I had the shot of adrenaline that went through my body. My heart started beating really fast. I mean, by the time I got through the whole experience, I went and sat in my car to have a really good talk with myself. How many of you ever talk to yourselves? Yeah, and those that didn't raise their hand are thinking, no, I never talk to myself.
At least you know somebody's listening.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
Well, on this particular occasion, I needed to have a really good talk with myself and humble myself and find out where all this anger was coming from, where all this attack was coming from, and I found that it was coming from the freeway. I had a major lesson to learn. My curriculum was on that freeway, because you can't divide up your life. You can't say, well, I know these people, so I'll be loving and forgiving to them, but these other people, these strangers here, forget it. Because there's bleed through. It starts to affect every area of your lives. And one of the greatest attributes in being a good student is humility. I own salons and I own schools. And I know I could take the instructors from my schools, put them into my salon to work in the salon, and I know that they'll be very successful. However, on the other hand, if I were to take some of the stylists from my salon and put them in my school to teach the students, if there is ego involved on their behalf, the students won't learn a thing. Your ego mind will close the doors of learning, not only in your own mind, but in the mind of other people that you're trying to work with. To always be a good student. And the last trait is to be service-oriented. To give back to the community, to the industry, to the family that got you where you are today. You know, the only thing that's lacking in your life right now is what you're holding on to. We've been kind of a spoiled generation, right? We make statements like, well, I'm waiting for my ship to come in. How many ships have you sent out lately? Again, the only thing that's lacking in your life right now is what you're holding on to. You need 3 hugs a day just to keep from being weird. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Winn, that's why I'm so weird, because I don't get 3 hugs a day. You know why you don't get 3 hugs a day? Because you don't deserve them. You don't deserve them because you don't give them. You only get what you give in life. There was a popular saying in the 60s that if you were not part of the solution, you were part of the problem. Meaning, if you are not consciously and actively contributing to the healing of this planet, whether that be environmentally or spiritually or financially or whatever form, then by definition you're contributing to its decline and destruction. Find something that you're passionate about. You know, whether it's the homeless or it's AIDS or cancer research or it's, you know, environmental issues or whatever it is, find something that you're passionate about, roll up your sleeves and get involved. And by the way, getting involved these days does not mean that we just attend black tie fundraising cocktail parties. These organizations need your money, but they also need your time. They need your personalities. They need you. Again, find something that you're passionate about. Become service-oriented. It's a wonderful trait of a leader to always give back. Let's go ahead and take that break. 15% of our success relies on our technical or artistic abilities, meaning 85% of the reason why a client returns to your salon has nothing to do with the haircut, the perm, the color, the manicure, the facial. Meaning your technical and artistic abilities account for only 15% of your financial success. That's kind of offensive, isn't it? I mean, think about how much time you spent learning how to cut hair, and now I'm up here saying that that's only 15% of your success. 30% of your success relies on verbal skills. Verbal skills, which is why we have classes on product knowledge, role-playing classes. However, 55% of our success relies on non-verbal skills.
You miss one. You don't have sex. That plays a big role. Doesn't everybody?
Yes, male or female, it sure does.
Or,
No,
or
not
opposite sex.
55%. What are nonverbal skills? Appearance. Appearance is a nonverbal skill. Appearance. Because we got to look the part of a professional. We got to look the part of fashion. Would you trust a dentist that didn't have any teeth? Okay? Appearance is a nonverbal skill. Another nonverbal skill, attitude, is a nonverbal skill. Let me ask you something. Can you learn how to have a good attitude? Is that a nonverbal skill that you can learn? Yes. Yeah. You can choose yourself. You can choose to divorce yourself from that negative programming that we talked about and choose to surround yourself by positive experiences, by positive people, and you can actually learn how to have a good attitude. It's a nonverbal skill that you can learn. Another nonverbal skill, countenance, is a nonverbal skill. What do I mean by countenance? I am so excited. I've never been this excited in all of my life. Obviously, what I am verbally telling you is much different than what my countenance is projecting. If you want the clients coming into your salon to be excited and happy to be there in your salon receiving services and products from you, what do you need to be? Excited and enthusiastic. Do you know when they do tests on cadavers? They find that the average person during their lifetime only used 9% of their brain. They found that Einstein used 13% of his brain, but the average person during their lifetime only uses 9% of their brain. Do you know anybody that uses less than that?
Yes.
You know what? We're all guilty of it every once in a while, aren't we? Because we don't use all of our potential. We don't use all of our knowledge. We don't even use all of our enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, it's countenance, it's a nonverbal skill. Another nonverbal skill, in fact, I think it's one of the most important nonverbal skills that I want to share with you, and that is self-esteem. Believe it or not, self-esteem is a nonverbal skill, and why is it so important? Because it is impossible for you to be sensitive to the needs of a client sitting in your chair unless you feel good about yourself. Now, whether it's that you're trying to improve your own self-esteem or self-esteem of people that you work with or of your children, I want to share with you some components to build self-esteem. Some components that build self-esteem. The first component that builds self-esteem is to give people a sense of achievement. Giving people a sense of achievement. And how do you accomplish this? Again, trying to build your own self-esteem or the self-esteem of others. How do you accomplish this? By having very clear and concise goals and then measuring performance according to those goals on a consistent basis. Remember, winners keep score. Winners keep score. Again, unless you are looking at your own numbers and percentages, your retail percentage, your chemical percentage, your client retention rate, your new referral rate, your pre-book percentages, unless you are looking at those percentages, your performance, and measuring your performance according to your goals, unless you're doing that, you're not having that sense of achievement, which is a nonverbal skill. Helps build self-esteem. Another component to build self-esteem is to give people a sense of being cared about. A sense of being cared about. Let me ask you, who's more important in the salon? The clients or the staff? It's a trick question because the answer to that question is both. Who's more important, the clients or the staff? The answer is both. How many of you feel like it's important to have a clean, wonderful, cosmetically nice waiting room for the clients? Okay? What does the employee lounge look like? Okay? Again, who's more important, the clients or the staff? Just as important as it would be to have a nice waiting room for our clients, it is just as important to have that nice environment for the staff as well. It's a component that builds self-esteem. Another component to build self-esteem is to give people a sense of power. Number 3 is a sense of power. And how do you accomplish this? By listening to people's opinions, by listening to people's ideas, being interested in what other people have to share. Does that mean that you have to implement their ideas? No. But it does mean that you're open to what other people think, what other people have to say. Another component to build self-esteem, number 4, is to give people a sense of appreciation. A sense of appreciation. How many of you have received a new referral on your books sometime within the last month? Okay, pretty much all of you. How many of you can honestly say that you sent either a handwritten thank you card or a follow-up phone call to the customer who sent in that new referral?
Personally,
The salon does.
Jackie does for all of us over here.
Okay, to the customer that sent in that referral. Okay, gratitude will come back to you tenfold. If you have 2 friends, you take both of your friends to dinner. The next week, one of the friends sends you a thank you card or sends you flowers, whatever, thanking you for dinner. The other friend never thanks you. Which friend are you going to invite to dinner next time?
Oh, first.
Obviously, the one that shows that gratitude. Gratitude will come back to you tenfold. To give people a sense of appreciation means you go out of your way to thank people. Find reasons to thank people. It's a component that builds self-esteem. And the last component to build self-esteem, to focus on having balance. To focus on having balance. Tell me something. How does society measure success?
One investor at a time.
By how much money you make, right? And we've all been hearing that since the day we were born. And so since we all want to be successful, we say, this represents my life. And because I want to be successful, I'm going to dedicate 100% of my life to my career, to the salon, to my profession. And all of us have probably tried this at one time or another, and eventually we experience what we call burnout. Burnout. It's impossible because we are not just professional people. Our lives are divided into 5 basic areas. Yes, we are professional people. However, we are also physical. We are also intellectual. We are also emotional, which I'm going to explain. And we are also spiritual. Now, you know those nights that you go to bed, and even though you are physically exhausted, dead, tired, your head hits the pillow and all of a sudden your eyes go, and your mind is going 100 miles an hour, and even though you are physically exhausted, your mind won't let you sleep? You know why that is? It's because we don't have balance in our lives. See, our mind can't let it go that we don't practice proper nutrition, and so our mind is racing, trying to find that balance for us. Or our mind can't get off the fact that we don't focus on cultivating healthy, constructive relationships. So again, our mind is racing, trying to find that balance. See, what a wise person would do, a wise person would say, of the 20% of my life that is devoted to my career, to my profession, I'm going to dedicate 100% to that 20%. Do you know anybody in the salon that's dedicating 50% to that 20%? They're at work, but they're really not at work. They're there physically, but that's about it. They show up and say, I'm here, but don't you expect me to be in a good mood. Okay? We want to be able to dedicate 100% to that 20%. And to be able to do that, it is very important that we focus on having balance in the other 4 areas as well. Now, we are not going to do this right now, but if we were to go around the room and ask those of you who could share with the rest of us a routine that you have in your life to keep balance physically, meaning you practice proper nutrition or you have an exercise program or whatever, how many of you could share with the rest of the group a routine to keep balance physically? Okay? Do you mind if I pick you a little bit?
Was I the only one that raised my hand?
No, they all raised their hand. Did you have an exercise program or something?
Yeah.
How many times a week?
3 to 4.
Okay, tell me something. If you were to give that up, whatever that is, if you were to give that up, do you feel like it would affect your career?
Definitely.
Do you feel like it would affect your relationships?
Yes.
Definitely. So you're saying the focus that and the commitment that you have to keep balance physically actually gives you balance in the other areas as well? Yeah. Okay. Intellectually, you're always trying to stimulate your mind, whether it's your going to seminars, reading books, motivational tapes, scuba lessons, singing lessons, whatever it is, that you're always trying to stimulate your mind. How many of you could share with the rest of us a routine to keep balance intellectually? Okay? Come on, give you guys, you're here. You're all here, aren't you? Okay? Give yourself some credit here. Emotionally, what we're talking about here are your relationships. I asked the question, several months back, I asked the question to a group who could share a routine to keep balance emotionally. And this one lady raised her hand and she says, well, I don't have balance in my life emotionally. In fact, she said, I can't have balance in my life emotionally right now because I'm not in a relationship. And I said, really? Look at the person next to you. But I don't know that person. You still have a relationship with that person. How many of you here ever drive in traffic? Okay? You have a relationship with everybody in that traffic situation. And how you choose to conduct yourself in that traffic situation will determine the amount of balance that you have in your life emotionally. Because again, if you drive down the freeway, saying, hey, get out of here, it's going to be pretty difficult to walk in the salon and say, hi, happy to serve you. if you abuse the bank teller or you abuse waitresses or whatever, it's going to be pretty difficult to go home and have a real healthy, constructive, intimate relationship with a spouse or with a partner. Okay? So how many of you could share with the rest of us a routine to keep balance emotionally? Okay? Again, congratulations. Spiritually, let me give you my definition of spirituality. And again, this is just my definition. To me, spirituality does not necessarily have to do with a belief in a religion or a belief in God. It could be that, and it is that for some people, but I don't believe that it has to be that. To me, true spirituality means that you have peace of mind with what you believe in. See, I know a lot of people who are very religious, who go to church every single Sunday, but they don't have peace of mind in what they believe in. In fact, oftentimes what they believe in brings them more fear, makes them more judgmental, and brings them more guilt than it brings them peace of mind. And to me, that's not true spirituality. So when we're talking about a system or a routine to keep balance spiritually, maybe we're talking about that maybe on the weekends you get away to the beach or to the country or whatever and you clear your mind. You take in nature, or you spend time to add up all the wonderful things in your life. Or maybe you do volunteer work, because doing volunteer work helps you step outside of your own drama and do for other people. And that brings you peace of mind. Or maybe it's you do meditation or yoga or whatever it is. Again, spirituality would be different for every person in here. So how many of you could share with the rest of us a routine to keep balance spiritually? Again, congratulations. Does anybody here know of someone who is perfectly balanced in all 5 areas? I don't know anybody. Because you spend a lot of time at work trying to get balance, with your career, making the money, all of a sudden you realize you got a pot belly. Spend a lot of time over here at the gym working out, trying to get balance physically, your spouse is complaining you're never home. Spend a lot of time over here at home with your spouse trying to get balance emotionally, you haven't done volunteer work for a long time. Over here doing volunteer work, trying to get that peace of mind, that spirituality, you're not making enough money. See what I mean? Running back and forth, trying to find that balance. But that's the excitement of life, is trying to find that balance. All I am saying here, my challenge to you and my challenge to myself, is just to recognize that all 5 areas do exist. Because again, you can't put your life on hold. You can't say, well, I'm not going to be a spiritual person for the next 3 years while I get my career off the ground. You can't do that. I'm not going to have any relationships for the next 3 years until I'm making the kind of money that I want to make. You can't do it. You can't do that. Focus on having balance in your life. Now, what I would like to do with you, the 5 areas of balance here, I'd like you to go through here and give yourselves a rating. Give yourself a rating. Now, again, this is just for your own benefit. This is not for anybody else to see. Each area, though, will account for 0 to 100. Okay? So don't divide them all up, to add up to 100. So 0 to 100 physically, 0 to 100 intellectually, 0 to 100 emotionally and spiritually. Go ahead and rate yourself. What percentage of a commitment do you have in that area? Are you 90% professional and only 50% physical and 75% emotional? Whatever it is, give yourselves a rating in each one of those areas.
Around the fence. Oh, around 100. Easy. 100.
Has everybody got that? Your personal rating?
I'm higher. I was thinking of religion. I sort of got into my religion. I don't have it anymore lately. I mean, past few weeks I can't come on. I have my own time.
Okay, once you have that, turn to this page where it says professional at the top of the page. Does everybody have their own workbook? Did they not have their own workbook? Professional. Okay. Turn to that professional page. Let me tell you what we're going to do here. I'm going to give you 4 minutes to write down all of your professional goals. Now let me say something before you get started here. Let me tell you what's going to happen here. When you write down your professional goals, oftentimes before we set our goals, we stop too long to think on how we are going to reach this goal, and then we think that, well, that's impossible, that'll never happen, so I won't make that a goal. When you write down your goals, remember when you were a little kid? You know, an 8-year-old kid sitting on Santa's knee, asking for what he wants, never stops to consider whether or not it's feasible. You know, he says, I want a swimming pool. No, I want 3 swimming pools. One for me, one for my mom, one for my, you know what I mean? They don't stop to see, is this logical or not? They just ask for the world. And that's the mindset that I want you to put yourselves in. The how is not important. I want you to be wild and imaginative in writing down what your professional goals are. And remember, the how is not important. So don't stop and judge, say, well, I'll never be able to accomplish that, or I don't know how I'll accomplish that, so I won't write it down. Please don't do that. Now, I'm going to, because we're going to be quiet during this time, I'm going to play some little music here so that you're not so nervous. But I want you to keep writing the entire time. I want you to always be writing. Keep that pencil going the entire time. Never stop writing. Does everybody have something to write with?
I might have some extra.
Probably got about 20 of them at the bottom there. How many lighters in there, Trace?
Oh my lineage.
Who has extra pencils or
I
pens that
think
they
I
can
do.
share with certain people? That,
Try doing here.
okay.
And
Does anybody have any extras? Who needs one? You need one?
supply us with any. Pens? Anybody else? Pens?
Where's Carl?
Must have got that from the last seminar. Pens?
Tracy, how many lighters in there?
Yeah, might have a few of your lighters too. Pens?
And during this 4 minutes,
Pens? Anybody else?
Ours blue and
So cute.
there's one right there behind Jerry. Or behind
Anybody else? Everybody have pens?
Just professional.
just professional goals. During this 4-minute time, I will be throwing out some ideas to give you ideas on what you could be thinking of, what you could be writing down as your professional goals. Okay? Go ahead and start. Okay, quiet please. Keep writing. How much money do you want to make? How much money do you want to make in a year? Or in 2 years? How much money do you want to be making in 10 years from now? Do you want to own your own business? Quiet. Do you want to be able to travel with your career? What kind of professional status or recognition do you want to receive in your career? what age do you want to retire? Is there anybody that you'd like to work with? Keep writing, you have one more minute. Remember, the how's not important. Doesn't matter if this is a logical goal or not, just write it down. Seconds. Start to finish it up. Now I want you to go back and I want you to categorize each one of these goals. Put a time frame on them of when you want to accomplish this goal. A year or less, 3 years or less, 5 years or less, 10 years or less. But please still remember the how is not important. So if you put a year or less, I don't want you to sit there and judge that 1 year goal to say, how in the hell am I going to accomplish this? That's not important right now. 1, 3, 5, 10 years or less. Next to each one of those goals. Once you've done that, I want you to pick your top 2 one-year goals. The top 2 one-year goals. The ones that are most important to you. Pardon?
We don't have any 1 year goals.
You don't have...
We're going to sleep through the next year.
If you don't have 1 year goals, I think you should have been more creative in that first process there. Okay? Pick the soonest goals then, okay? Your top 2 one-year goals. And once you've chosen those top 2 one-year goals, transfer them on to the next page at 1 and 2.
Top 2.
Your top 2 one-year goals, transfer them on to the next page. Okay, have you transferred the top 2 one-year goals? Anybody not finished that part yet? Okay. Now, I'm going to give you 2 minutes on each one of these top 2 one-year goals. Wait, before you write. I want you to write a paragraph, spend 2 minutes writing a paragraph under that top 2 1-year goals of why it is so important for you to reach that goal and what it's going to cost you if you don't reach that goal. Meaning, imagine that you're 80 years old and you're sitting back in a rocking chair and you're looking over your life. Pretend that you did not reach this goal. What are you going to regret by not reaching this goal? Meaning, what is it going to cost you if you do not reach this goal? So again, that paragraph is going to be about why it's so important for you to reach this goal and what it's going to cost you if you don't reach this goal. So go ahead and spend 2 minutes on each paragraph. Go ahead and begin. Why is it so important to reach this goal? And if you don't reach this goal, what are you going to regret? What will it cost you if you don't reach this goal? Will it cost you your retirement? Will it cost you your pride? Will it cost you peace of mind? Another 45 seconds on your first paragraph. Start working on your second paragraph, your second top 1-year goal. Seconds on your second top 1-year goal. Be creative here. Why is it so important to reach this goal? Seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead and turn the page. Intellectual. We're going to do the same thing. You're going to have 4 minutes to write as fast as you can all of your wild, imaginative, creative goals, things that you want to accomplish intellectually. And again, I'll be throwing out some ideas during this 4-minute time period. So go ahead, start writing. What books do you want to read? What seminars do you want to attend? want to become an expert in? You want to study psychology, or art, or history? You want to take singing lessons or dancing lessons?
That's the question.
You want to go back to school? You want to get a degree in something? Remember, the how's not important, just keep writing. What about hobbies? What hobbies would you like to pursue? Another 2 minutes, keep writing. Doesn't matter how silly it is or how wild it is, just write it down. One more minute. Now again, go back and categorize these. 1, 3, 5 years or less, 10 years or less. Categorize each one of these. 1, 3, 5, or 10. Again, once you've done that, pick your top 2 one-year goals and transfer them onto the next page. Got their top 2 one-year goals transferred. Okay, remember you have 2 minutes on each paragraph on each one of these goals of why it is so important for you to reach that goal. Go ahead. Convince yourself, plead with yourself. Why is it so important for you to reach this goal? And what will it cost you if you don't reach this goal? If you don't have that intellectual stimulation, will you become a couch potato? Seconds left on your first paragraph. Start on your second paragraph. Create some passion for yourself. Really convince yourself of why it's so important for you to reach this goal. Write a letter to yourself if you have to. What's it costing you now for not reaching this goal? One more minute on your second paragraph. Start to tie it up. Stretch out your hand. These next three tend to get real passionate for people. When we're talking about physical, when we're talking about relationships, and when we're talking about spiritual. I have to tell you, this is not an easy exercise for people. It's really easy to sit back and not face these things. You know, this is when I did this many, many years ago, this was a big turning point for me in my life. So. Do you want to do aerobics? Do you want to lift weight?
Judge, but her life after the war crumbled because she'd been a Japanese comfort woman. Her husband left her. He took her children.
What about your diet? What foods do you want to cut out of your diet? Or what foods do you want to add to your diet? quit smoking, quit drinking, cut back on drinking. Trying to get more sleep at night or less sleep at night. Become a vegetarian,
Sure.
a homeopathic expert, a homeopathic expert.
One of those.
He won't want
Yeah.
to. You want
I think I'll be one.
Hold on.
You know everything.
What?
Start taking vitamins every day.
Yes.
Do it, do it.
Keep writing, you have another minute.
Siberian ginseng?
Okay, 30 seconds.
Is it pumpkin rabbit energizer? Bike run. Scrog.
No,
Bushes.
I just read it.
Okay. Now go ahead and categorize these 1, 3, 5, or 10 years or less. And it is not uncommon that some people will categorize a lot of these 1 year or less. So don't think that that's odd that you want all these within a year. That's not uncommon. 1 year or less. There you go. So categorize all of them. And then again, pick your top 2 1-year physical goals and transfer them onto the next page. Pick them wisely.
I just work all weekend, 4 days.
But I have to do this, or do that.
Number one goal?
Minus.
Big minus.
Any cheese on there, please?
Okay, has everybody got that transferred?
Got it.
Okay.